Il testo è approvato.
A victory for news organizations, musicians, and filmmakers who say they're fighting to make the internet fair. And a blow to tech firms and activists who say they want to keep the internet free.
Big giants, especially Google and Facebook, they have to be responsible and pay fairly and adequately.
Members of the European Parliament in the French city of Strasbourg approved changes to the EU's copyright rules for the first time in more than a decade. The debate has attracted arguments from a diverse cast, including former Beatle Paul McCartney, Wikipedia founder Jimmy Wales, and musician Wyclef Jean. It revolved around two main provisions. The first relates to upload filters for platforms like Facebook and YouTube. Under the new rules, firms need to implement filters that will have to sift through all photos, videos, and music that users want to post. Any whiff of copyright infringement and content will be blocked. In an open letter, McCartney said,
"We need an internet that is fair and sustainable for all. But today, some user upload content platforms refuse to compensate artists and all music creators fairly for their work, while they exploit it for their own profit."
Critics, however, say this would stifle the creativity that the internet has helped cultivate over the years.
I own some of the biggest copyrights in the world, and I'm telling any kid right here, I don't want a filter for you if you want to play the Wyclef Jean music. So this is how I'm going to discover the next artist. So as a producer, back home, all of the producers, the way that they're going to discover artists is through these platforms.
The second provision under the spotlight is what's being called a link tax. It will require tech firms to pay publishers for displaying news snippets. News organizations like Agence France Presse say the extra revenue would help them maintain high standards of journalism.
Of course, we are for the continuation of Facebook and Google. Just let them pay us. That's all we're asking, is that they pay us for that and so that we can continue and develop the news.
Lawmakers can now proceed with negotiations with the European Council, representing the bloc's 28 member states. Supporters of the reforms want a law finalized before EU parliamentary elections in May, when new lawmakers could choose to shut it all down. Paolo Montesilio, TRT World.
And for more on this, Diego Naran-ho joins me now from Brussels. He's Senior Policy Advisor at European Digital Rights. That's an association that defends online rights and freedoms. Diego, great to have you on the show. Tell us, in what ways do these new rules amount to a censorship of free speech?
Well, these rules, if in the end up being adopted, this will be a nuclear blast on the internet. What these new rules change is that make a vast amount of companies liable for what the content that users upload online. These companies, in order to avoid being sued because of copyright content hosted on their servers, will need to install upload filters. Upload filters, as we know, are algorithms that do not work perfectly. Last week, James Rowe, the famous pianist, saw one of his videos of himself playing a tune in his own living room being taken down for copyright infringement, when this was a video based on a piece of music that was recorded created 300 years ago. And we can imagine many of these examples of algorithms taking down legal content in the future if this law is finally adopted.
So, to be clear, in your opinion, these rules actually place an undue burden on companies like YouTube and Facebook.
Well, this doesn't put any more burden on YouTube or Facebook, because both of them already have filters in their services. The example that I was just mentioning about James Rowe, he had uploaded this content to Facebook, for example. So this will not affect them. It will affect all the other European companies and companies from all around the world that will now need to install these upload filters. Probably will need to pay a license to YouTube for the software, which is at the moment the best software available, but it's also very bad. It doesn't work perfectly. But they will need to pay YouTube for that software, and they will need to implement it now. But YouTube and Facebook will stay as they are, probably even bigger.
Okay. Now, one of the backers of these new rules, MEP Axel Voss, who you've been quite critical of, says that the amendments to the original proposals mean that smaller online platforms, such as the one that you've just referred to, they wouldn't, essentially, they would keep the internet as free as it is today. That's according to him. What's your reaction to that?
It is true that in the amendment, the micro and small-sized enterprises will not be affected by this rule. But then what we will see, paradoxically, is that European companies will not be able to grow, because in case they grow, then they will need to install these upload filters, which they then will have to pay for and install them on the server. So then European companies are going to be incentivized to remain small and not to compete with the big tech giants.
Okay, so in your opinion, these rules are going to curb the ability of people to innovate.
Yes, of course, because a lot of companies, the new YouTubes that could be around and being created right now will not be able to exist, because they will need to pay for these very expensive filters that YouTube says that cost around $60 million to create. And they will need now to either pay a sort of license for this software or create their own, which is very, very expensive. And we'll probably see less innovation, less creation online, less legal content available, and less new companies trying to compete with the big tech giants.
Right. So are these rules also going to affect content creators outside the EU that want to distribute their content within the EU?
Yes, it will affect any creator that is going to distribute their content in any platform that operates in the EU.
Right. So overall, you're presumably going to fight this even more, because this isn't the end of this story. The ratification process is yet to continue, right?
Yes, definitely. The battle continues. We lost this fight. This time we won in July, but we lost this time. But we are quite optimistic to win the next one for the final vote of the trialogues. The problem is the person in charge of representing European citizens for the parliament is Axel Voss, the same one who has proposed the upload filter. So that's going to be a difficult fight. But I'm sure that because of the elections next year, politicians are going to be more aware of what the voters think, are going to be more cautious of adopting any upload filters on the internet.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Diego Naran-ho of European Digital Rights, thank you very much indeed.